If you've spent any time in the world of therapy, you've probably heard the term cognitive distortions. This term basically describes the tricks that our minds play on us that make love, life, and relationships a lot harder than they need to be. In this video, I'll describe 4 of the most common cognitive distortions that I see in couples I work with, so you can avoid succumbing to these in your own relationship. I'm Cameron. I'm a licensed therapist, wife, and mother, and this is my channel, Modern Marriage, where I share with you guys all the tips, resources, and insights that I've gained from working with couples in therapy so that you can start building the relationship that you've always wanted. I sometimes like to think about cognitive distortions as if they're this grumpy goblin living in my head. He looks something like this. Picturing this mischievous little guy helps me remember that these distorted ways of thinking aren't usually a conscious choice. They're more like an ugly little monster who's messing around with my thoughts. It relieves some of the pressure and guilt I feel so that I'm capable of addressing these distortions head on. So, with that image in mind, the 4 cognitive distortions I want to share with you guys are: number 1, assuming your spouse's intentions; number 2, taking your spouse's actions personally; number 3, making biased attributions; and number 4, believing marriage is a zero-sum game. I'll explain all of these in a minute, but before I do, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this, and share this video with someone who you think might benefit from it. Okay, first, assuming your spouse's intentions. This is one I've really spent a lot of time trying to train out of myself. I'll share an example. So let's say that my husband forgets to take out the trash after I asked him to. I can react in one of 2 ways. I can either chalk it up to him being busy or tired or distracted by other things, all of which are totally understandable and really have nothing to do with me. Or I can assume that he didn't care enough about me to do what I asked. This latter choice is the sort of assumption that breeds resentment over time, since the more I tell myself that my husband meant to hurt my feelings when he said something in a way that I didn't like, or doesn't care about my needs when he forgets to do something, the more I'm going to doubt his commitment to me. That's how we get to a place where we believe crazy things like, my husband doesn't care about me, or my wife doesn't love me anymore. This only happens after assuming our spouse's intentions in many small ways over and over again. A simple solution to this one is ideally to give your spouse the benefit of the doubt, meaning that if you're unsure of why he did something, you assume there was a good or at least understandable reason for his behavior. If it seems too difficult to do this, try asking for clarification. Something like, hey, I saw the trash hasn't been taken out. Are you still able to do that? Or, the way you said that was a bit harsh. Is everything okay? This at least gives your spouse the chance to explain what's really going on so that your mind is less likely to jump to painful assumptions. Next, taking your spouse's actions personally. Has your spouse ever been in a bad mood, kind of out of nowhere, and you're not sure what's going on, and your mind jumps to the thought, well, he must be upset with me about something? It's not like it's a crazy assumption to make. After all, we've all been in situations where if a person is upset around us, it's because they're upset with us. The other day, I heard a wife say that when her husband consistently chooses to stay late at the office, it makes her feel like he's bored at home with her and their kids. She thought that if he were really enjoying his family, he'd want to be home more instead of working so much. And after years of him working long hours, she'd reached a point where she was convinced that he just didn't love them that much. But it turned out that from the husband's point of view, he was working late because he felt it was his responsibility to provide for the family as best as he could. He also often got engrossed in his work and lost track of time, not because he didn't love and cherish his wife and kids, but because he was good enough at his job that his plate was always full. The best way to combat this distortion is to ask your spouse what's going on, rather than taking his actions personally. You don't need to force a long conversation in the moment if he's not in the mood to talk. Just express that you want to know whether he's upset with you or something else, why he's making certain decisions, and let him know that you're there to listen if he needs to get anything off his chest. This at least opens the door to further conversation about how his actions are affecting you and how you two could better communicate to avoid unintentionally hurting one another in the future. Now, for the infamous attribution bias. So the attribution bias works like this. We're far more likely to take credit for our own successes and blame our failures on external circumstances or chance, whereas we tend to do the opposite with other people. So in marriage, this often looks like being quick to attribute a harsh comment or a bad mood of our own to just having a tough day or being tired or some other external reason. However, the same behavior in our spouse is often far more frustrating because we attribute it to a flaw in his character or priorities. You can solve this cognitive distortion by thinking, when my spouse does something that bothers me, have I ever made a similar mistake? What brought about that mistake for me? Is there a chance that something external is making it harder for my spouse to be kind and loving right now? Essentially, you try to treat your spouse the way you treat yourself by assuming some external issue is at least partially to blame for his behavior. And lastly, believing marriage is a zero-sum game. This cognitive distortion often pops up once a relationship has developed to a point where neither spouse's emotional needs are being adequately met, following months or even years of conflict and emotional withdrawal. Couples reach a point where it feels like there can only be one winner in every interaction. If my husband gets his way, then I lose. If I do what he asks or give him what he wants, then I'll end up with less. This is the hardest distortion to combat because it requires rooting out a very common but harmful mindset that I call keeping score or having a tit for tat mentality. I made another video going into this topic in more depth, so I'll put that link to that video in the description below so you can check it out if you want to. The one thing I'll say about this distortion, though, is that although it takes a lot of bravery to overcome, specifically the bravery to risk loving your spouse without getting what you want in return, at least right away, the fastest way to stop viewing marriage as a zero-sum game is to ask your spouse how you can love him better. What are the things you could do that you aren't already doing to make him feel loved, appreciated, and respected? How can you fill his cup? And then do what he asks regardless of what he's doing for you. Since the zero-sum game starts from a place of deprivation, the faster you can start giving your spouse what he needs, the faster he'll have the emotional bandwidth to return that love. Okay guys, what do you think? Does this align with your experiences of marriage and relationships? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And until next time, I'm Cameron, and this is Modern Marriage.